The storm hit like a raging beast, trapping me inside the house with no escape. I never imagined something so twisted and forbidden could happen to me, especially not with my father's law. My husband, Rachel, was away on a business trip, leaving just me and his stepfather, Daniel, alone in our small studio apartment. Daniel was related to Rachel by blood, but legally he was my father's law, and up until now we had always kept things perfectly normal between us. The sudden typhoon changed everything. The government had issued an emergency order forbidding anyone from going outside. For the next several days, I would be completely isolated with him in this tiny space that offered almost no privacy. The bathroom, with its frosted semi-transparent glass, was the worst part. From outside, you could faintly see the silhouette of anyone moving inside, but never the details, like a thin veil of mystery that made my heart beat faster for reasons I didn't want to examine. "Daniel, you take the bed tonight. I'll sleep on the floor," he said gently, coming over and taking the blanket from my hands. His voice was soft, like a warm breeze. "It's fine, really. You should rest," I replied, startled. For a split second, an inappropriate thought flashed through my mind, and I quickly shook it away. The idea of him possibly seeing things he shouldn't made me deeply uncomfortable, especially the way his eyes sometimes lingered on me, carrying an emotion I couldn't quite name, as if hiding a secret. Right now I was wearing only a thin nightgown, my legs bare, and the heavy atmosphere made me feel exposed. I hesitated, wondering if I should change into something more modest. "All right, get some sleep," he said, and lay down. I breathed a quiet sigh of relief and didn't mention changing. I climbed into bed, but my heart raced like a startled rabbit, staying on high alert. Half an hour passed with no unusual movement from him. His breathing grew steady and deep, as if he had already fallen asleep. I finally relaxed a little. Maybe I was just overthinking it. Sleep came slowly, but the howling wind and pounding rain jolted me awake in the middle of the night. The storm sounded like thunderous horses or wailing ghosts, leaving me restless and scared. Suddenly, a warm hand closed around my ankle. I nearly cried out in shock and tried to pull away, but the grip was firm. "Don't be afraid. I promised Rachel I'd take good care of you." Danielle's voice came low and deep through the darkness, sounding like it rose from the ground itself. I was mortified. A father minus law grabbing his daughter's thigh was foot like this was completely wrong. Before I could protest, his hand began sliding slowly upward, stroking my ankle with gentle fingers. "Daniel, I'm not scared. You should go back to sleep," I said, shifting backward in an attempt to free my leg. But he held on, continuing the light caress. Rachel had been traveling so much lately that we hadn't been intimate in a long time. Still, I had never considered crossing any lines with anyone else, especially not with Rachel's stepfather. My father's law in name. This isn't right, I thought, biting my lip. One hand clutched the sheets tightly. It's easy to catch a chill on a rainy night like this. "Let me give you a little massage," he offered, the excuse sounding strange in the dark. I gave a vague response, silently telling myself I would only allow it as long as he didn't go too far. My silence seemed to encourage him. His touch grew bolder, more unrestrained, until I realized things were quickly getting out of hand. Rachel's face flashed in my mind. I couldn't betray my husband's trust. I opened my mouth to stop him. A loud crash erupted as the typhoon ripped the window open. Heavy rain and fierce wind blasted inside, soaking me instantly. Before I could react, I was pulled into a strong, warm embrace. I was grateful our little apartment hadn't created a dangerous cross-craft, or I might have been swept away. Daniel had been sleeping against the wall and had moved fast enough to shield me. Otherwise, who knows what could have happened. Once the immediate panic eased, I realized I was pressed against his chest and immediately tried to push him away. "Daniel, I'm okay now. You can let go." The large bed had blocked some of the wind, but he showed no intention of releasing me. "It's not safe here. Let's move to the bathroom, he said. Without waiting for my answer, he scooped me up and carried me into the bathroom. He flicked the lights, which several times, but nothing happened. The power had gone out at some point. Inside the dark bathroom, he pressed me protectively into the corner while the storm continued to rage outside, sending objects flying around the room. Don't worry. It's safer here for now. I'll protect you. His voice rumbled from above me. I looked up without thinking and only then noticed how closely we were pressed together. A flash of lightning lit up the sky, turning the bathroom bright as day for a split second. I saw Daniel half-blind as kneeling in front of me while I was trapped in the corner. If anyone saw us in this position, they would definitely misunderstand what was happening. The pose made me extremely uneasy. Daniel, I want to stand up the moment I moved. My foot slipped on something wet and slick. I pitched forward, certain I was about to fall. Instead, Daniel caught me tightly in his arms. Cheeks burned as I heard his breathing clearly. For some reason, I didn't push him away right away. This time he held me even closer, settling me onto his lap. The wind howled fiercely outside as he whispered with concern, "Be careful." My heart was in complete turmoil. The scent of his body wash was exactly the same as the one Rachel always used. In that moment, I had the strange illusion that the man holding me wasn't my father Huthersteinminaslaw at all, but my husband, Rachel. I didn't refuse him. Instead, I obediently nestled closer against his body, even as a voice inside me kept repeating, "This is wrong. I have to get out of this dangerous situation right now." I took a deep breath and forcefully broke free from his embrace. "Dad, we can't do this," I said firmly, then moved as far away from him as possible, standing in a relatively safe corner while we waited for the typhoon to pass. "Shh, don't speak." I raised my hand to cover his approaching lips, biting my own as I whispered softly. As long as I didn't say anything out loud, I could keep deceiving myself. The person with me right now was Rachel, not my father minus in his law. If I just imagine it was my husband, it shouldn't be too wrong, right? I've never been a cold woman. After we got married, Rachel threw himself completely into work. The attention he gave me was far less passionate than during our dating days, and the time we spent together had shrunk dramatically. I had been craving more affection and companionship for so long. At that moment, some overwhelming emotion clouded my mind. I just wanted to satisfy the deep longing inside me. I let myself enjoy the warmth he offered and closed my eyes in contentment. No, I still couldn't fully accept this version of myself. He moved my hand away, gripped my shoulders, and leaned close to my ear, his voice low. "It's okay. No one can see anything right now anyway." His warm breath brushed against the side of my neck, and the tiny shred of reason I had just regained crumbled once more. Since it was pitch dark and we couldn't see each other clearly, I could simply pretend he was Rachel. Besides, he added softly, "Don't worry. I won't tell anyone about anything private that happens." With those words, his movements grew even bolder. Just at that critical moment, a sudden knock came from the door. I jolted in fright and snapped back to reality, instantly realizing how outrageous my actions had been. I pushed him away and hurriedly straightened my clothes. The knocking continued. My father Manoas in Minus Law shielded me behind him and braved the strong wind to reach the door. "Anyone in there?" "Great. Yuri still alive. We saw your window was broken. We're rescue personnel." Though I was surprised, I remained cautious. How could anyone risk coming to save strangers in such violent winds and rain? I looked through the peephole and saw several men in firefighter uniforms. Relief flooded me. "They're firefighters," I called out happily. A flash of displeasure crossed my father Minas Inislaw's face. His eyes filled with reluctance. He shouted toward the door, "We're safe for now. Please go help those who need it more." I stared at him in astonishment, then glanced back at the half-meter window and the bed now ruined by wind and rain. Weren't we the ones who needed rescuing right now? "Dad, this house isn't safe anymore. Let's go with the rescue team." But he blocked the doorway, stopping me from opening the door. Don't we still have the bathroom to hide in? I froze. The memory of what had just happened was still vivid. Seeing the burning look in his eyes, I knew he wanted to continue where we had left off. But I was fully awake now and would not make that mistake again. Dad, the bathroom glass might not hold much longer. What if it shatters after they leave? What would we do then? The words had barely left my mouth when a powerful gust of wind slammed in. Both of us were thrown to the floor. The remaining half of the window glass was ripped away and hurled downstairs. My heart raced with fear. I rushed over and flung the door open. "Thank you," I said. I didn't even have time to pack any spare clothes before following the rescue team to the 5th floor. To my surprise, they assigned us a temporary shelter that was a 2-bedroom apartment. My father and Law looked clearly unhappy. He frowned and stopped the rescue worker who was about to leave. "Comrade, supplies are tight right now. There's no need to give us such a big place. A small room would be enough. Isn't this inconvenient?" The rescue worker looked puzzled. "What's inconvenient about it? I just saw your home earlier. It was only a 1-room unit." I quickly slipped into one of the bedrooms and locked the door behind me, standing with my back pressed against it. The handle turned. My father's tent will, ocked unwillingly. "Daniel, the wind outside is so strong. Aren't you scared? Open the door and let me come in to keep you company." I bit my lip, filled with regret. What I had done earlier was completely wrong. "No need. I'm not afraid." "What if the window in your bedroom gets blown out too? That would be dangerous. Why don't you come out here instead? We can sleep in the bathroom tonight. This apartment's bathroom has no windows and isn't made of glass. It's very safe." Even now he still wanted to continue that mistaken behavior. I felt a surge of anger, but after all, he was my father minus Law, and I had been confused for a moment too. It wasn't right to blame him entirely. I pushed down my irritation. No, thank you. Please go back to your room and rest." With that, I lay down on the bed. For a long time, faint sounds lingered outside the door. I felt both afraid and regretful. Finally, the footsteps outside faded away. I breathed a sigh of relief and scolded myself inwardly for ever having such thoughts. How was I supposed to face him after this? Just as I was lost in anxious thoughts, my phone suddenly rang. It was Rachel calling. The moment I answered, tears spilled uncontrollably. "Hey, are you okay?" Rachel's anxious voice came through. "I'm fine. The windows at home got blown out. I'm in a room the rescue team arranged for us now. What about Dad?" Mentioning my father and Slaw made me feel instantly guilty. I could never let Rachel know what had happened. I quickly composed myself. "She's in the next room. We're both safe. Don't worry." Rachel clearly relaxed. He must have been terribly worried about our safety after the typhoon hit. Looking at Rachel's concerned face on the screen, the guilt in my heart grew even heavier. He worked so hard for our family, rushing around without even being able to come home, while I had nearly made an unforgivable mistake out of momentary loneliness. I barely heard most of what Rachel said afterward. Only his last words registered clearly. The property group announced the typhoon will continue for several more days. The city will stay locked down for a while longer. Take good care of yourself and Dad. After hanging up the phone, I stared out at the raging storm and was suddenly overcome by drowsiness. I fell asleep right away. The next morning, I was jolted awake by a knock at the door. Daniel's voice came from outside. "Daniel, the rescue team brought supplies. I made some breakfast. Come out and eat." I let out a sigh of relief and rubbed my empty stomach. I really was hungry. I got dressed, opened the door carefully, and found that Daniel had already set the food on the table. We sat facing each other. At first he ate properly, but gradually I noticed his behavior becoming inappropriate. When he made another improper move, I reacted strongly on purpose so he would understand my stance. I was curious why Daniel had suddenly changed his attitude. That this kind of interaction also made me feel relieved. We continued like this without incident for the next few days. I should have been happy, yet my heart felt strangely conflicted. Outside, the wind had died down a lot, but the rain still hadn't stopped. Rachel was trapped in the city where he was on business, while I was stuck in the small house. Late at night, the storm finally eased. My heart, however, stirred with nameless emotions. Thinking back to what had happened that night, I forced myself to stay calm. Rachel had been away on business for 2 months. For a newlywed like me, this time had been difficult enough, and the events of that night had left me even more unsettled. Daniel had been unusually quiet lately, more well-behaved than before. I gradually lowered my guard, though I still remained vigilant. I decided to test him a little. When the wind and rain had lessened, I went back home to fetch some clean clothes. I deliberately changed into a modest but slightly lively set of pajamas and settled on the couch to watch TV. Daniel came out, clearly startled when he saw me, but he quickly looked away and regained his composure. "Daniel," he said, snapping back to himself. "I'm going to the bathroom." "Daniel, is this show any good?" "Boring. Just flipping channels," I answered lightly. "Want to watch together?" "Sure." Daniel came out of the bathroom and sat down beside me. I tensed up instantly, but he stayed focused on the television the whole time, discussing the plot with me without any improper behavior. Because of that evening, the atmosphere between us improved a great deal. We could talk normally and discuss the drama. This continued until the second week, when the storm had almost completely stopped. The rescue team was busy repairing damaged houses, so Daniel and I still had to stay in this house for a while longer. During this time, our only brief exchanges happened at meals. I told myself he was a man with boundaries and that nothing bad would happen again. Once I relaxed my vigilance, my sleep improved too. Still, having been newly married, I found myself missing some of the simple joys of married life. Rachel was away on business, too far to reach. I was alone at home, with Daniel sleeping in the next room. The events of that typhoon night still left me uneasy. After that, I dressed very conservatively and avoided too much interaction with Daniel, simply hoping the days would pass peacefully until Rachel returned to take us home. But that night, as I drifted in a hazy sleep, I suddenly sensed movement. At first I thought it was my imagination, until the mattress sank heavily and a warm breath curled against my ear. My heart trembled. Instinctively I wanted to resist, but a familiar voice spoke. "Don't be afraid. It's me. Don't be scared. I promised my son I would take good care of you." It was Daniel's voice. There was no other man here. He drew closer, his words growing more and more ambiguous. I clenched my teeth. No, this couldn't continue. Even though he didn't look his age, healthy and strong, he was still my husband's stepfather. My father made us in Minislaw. Before I could react, a rush of cool air slipped under the covers. I started to sit up and push him away, but his gentle, smiling voice came again. "Yes, just like that. There's nothing to resist." His voice bewitched me, and I shamefully let go of the thought of resistance. Just then, I heard him speak again. "I promised. My son asked me to take care of you. Don't worry." I realized I had to stop this wrong behavior immediately. I couldn't let things go any further. I didn't know what had come over me. After 2 months of sleeping alone since our wedding, every night had been spent by myself. Since Rachel wasn't here, he would never know what happened tonight. In the darkness I couldn't see anything, yet that only made it feel more thrilling. Images from not long ago flashed before my eyes, the figure I had glimpsed through the frosted glass in the bathroom. Daniel looked so charming, dressed fashionably, like a mature, steady man in his 30s. Compared to Rachel, he even seemed more alluring. A hot wave of emotion overtook me, but in that instant, Rachel's face flashed through my mind, and the caring words he had said on the phone echoed in my ears again. We had only been married for 2 months. We liked each other so much, and he was so good to me, caring about every little thing. How could I betray his trust? A strong sense of morality condemned me. At this critical moment, My reason fully returned. I suddenly grabbed his hand. No, not tonight. He came to his senses completely, too. My body, which had been soft and weak moments earlier, suddenly found strength from somewhere. I forcefully pulled his arm away, straightened the clothes on my shoulders, and shifted aside to create distance. The heat hadn't faded yet. Over and over in my heart I told myself no. This is my father minus Nina's law. But she didn't give up. She followed right after me, still murmuring softly, "It's okay. Rachel listened here. He won't know what happened between us. As long as we don't say anything, no one else will know." I immediately reached out and pushed him away, holding firm to my, "No, Yuri, my father minus and Shlaw." The moment those words left my mouth, I suddenly struggled free from the absurd dream. Everything just now had been fake. I had been dreaming. I was still lying in the same spot, but a large hand rested heavily along my side. Before I could even process everything from the dream, the hand suddenly pulled away. A figure sat up in the darkness, and in the quiet room, Rachel's familiar voice rang out, tight with barely suppressed emotion. "What, Dad?" It turned out the situation just now hadn't been a dream at all. The person lying so close to me wasn't my father Manus in Manus law, it was my husband, who had come back at some point and slipped into bed beside me. A daydreams turning into night dreams. I had simply assumed it was him. The next second, with a click, the room flooded with light as bright as daytime. The sudden glare stung my eyes, and I instinctively raised my hand to shield them. My heart sank. When my vision adjusted, I saw Rachel's grim expression. In that instant, my face went pale and panic flooded through me. He had clearly said the typhoon wouldn't pass so quickly and that the city would remain locked down for some time. Yet here he was, back so suddenly. Guilt overwhelmed me. I didn't even dare lift my head to look at his. Rachel looked exhausted, obviously having rushed back in a hurry. He stared at me, his voice cold. "I've been so worried about your safety. I did everything I could to get back here. I wanted to surprise you and didn't have the heart to wake you. And then the first thing out of your mouth was Dad. You mistook me for my father." I bit my lip, heart racing with guilt. He must have assumed that while he was away, something improper had happened between me and his stepfather in this very bed. His anger hit me like a wave. He swept everything off the bedside table in one furious motion, then let out a cold laugh. "So what exactly have you been doing? Alone together in this bed? What do you take me for? If I hadn't come back, would I have never even known I was being cuckolded?" At that moment, my father Steinmanus Law, drawn by the noise, knocked and entered the room, still bleary-eyed and confused. Rachel immediately turned on him. "I called you Dad and asked you to take care of my husband. How could you do this?" I felt the full force of his rage and didn't dare lie. I crawled across the bed and grabbed his hand. "Rachel, please don't misunderstand. We didn't do anything. If you don't believe me, ask your dad. I just slipped up and said the wrong name. After all, he saved me during the typhoon. Nothing ever happened between us. I've always remembered that I'm a married man." He didn't pull his hand away, so I held on even tighter. My father Manus Imschlaw quickly realized what was happening. He spoke with a helpless sigh. Every day the howling typhoon shattered all the windows at home. If I hadn't protected Daniel in the bathroom, he might have been hurt. The emergency rescuers brought us here. I've been cooking for him every day just like you asked me to. He was clearly tense, afraid, and caught off guard by his sudden return. Calling out the wrong name in a moment like that. It's understandable, right? His words sounded sincere, with no obvious holes. After he finished, Rachel's gaze shifted back and forth between us, doubtful but no longer as furious. He wasn't an impulsive person. Once he took in the whole scene, his anger had already cooled somewhat. I reassured him again and again that it was all just a misunderstanding. "Rachel, how could I ever betray you?" I didn't dare mention what had happened in the bathroom that night, nor did I dare speak of the dream. I simply claimed it was a small mix, clearly told him that my moral was still firmly in place. I knew certain things could never be done. Seeing my earnest attitude, Rachel studied me for a long moment, watching me tremble like a frightened bird. He seemed to feel a pang of pity. After confirming multiple times that nothing had happened, he finally believed me. Slowly, he took my hand, and his voice softened back to its usual gentleness. The next morning when I woke up, there was no breakfast prepared on the table. The room where my father minus and Haitullah had been staying was empty, his things packed neatly. When Rachel got up and saw it, he praised how tidy he was. I didn't dare say much. He had slipped away quietly like that. It seemed the absurd little secret had left with him. Perhaps this small incident would end here. After the typhoon passed, Rachel had no short minus-term business trips. We spent every moment together, and the house was gradually repaired. Before long, we moved back home. Everything returned to normal. But at night, when I saw Rachel in the bathroom, inappropriate images would sometimes flash through my mind. I would quickly shake my head and tell myself I couldn't think that way. The person inside was my husband. Our warm married life continued. The lonely nights that once weighed on me were now filled. Since Rachel's return, I never saw my father minus and minus law again. The absurd entanglement triggered by the typhoon faded like a nightmare into the long river of daily life, leaving only faint traces behind, reminders of the mistake I had once made and the lesson I had learned.